Stadia Pro Gaming. It's in the cloud.
Hey, what is happening? SPG here in the house. Woo! Welcome to my nightmare. No, just kidding. Kind of a shit show, but not as bad as it could have been. Hopefully you guys can hear me. Hopefully you can see me. But yeah, so I did a AMD Ryzen 9 5950X build. I realized that AMD has a whole bunch of pins and you have to be very careful not to bend them. Certified doctor gave me a heads up on that before I started. But hopefully you guys are having a decent Monday. But here's what happened. So I was going to film this build, not educational wise, showing you each step, but just to show you the parts and describe what I was doing and then have it put together. So that's what I did. I had two buddies over here to help me, and more hands in a PC does not equal a faster build or a more competent build. I'll put it that way for sure. But I've built like 10 computers, so I am not a newbie when it comes to building computers at all. And what I did is I went on Amazon and I picked the parts I wanted. I picked the case I wanted, and I did some measurements with the stats of the case to make sure everything would fit. And I ordered the parts. Now, here is the most worst thing about ordering parts and building a computer yourself. Unless you're Linus Tech Tips, to where you have almost a store worth of extra parts laying around, you're going to have some issues because things can come damaged right out of the box. Like as soon as you open them, they can be bad. As an example, okay, I got a ROG Strix B550F gaming motherboard, and it's a Republic of Gamers. You can see the box here. Let me show you something. When they shipped this thing to me, ladies and gentlemen, look at what they did. Now, usually you would take this box and you would stick it in another box with some packing. You know what I'm saying? No. Look at that. That's the shipping label, bro. They just took it off the shelf, slapped a shipping label. I keep saying shitting. Slapped a shipping label on this box and just threw it in the mail. Little to say, I had not a lot of hope for the motherboard. Now, so that was the first issue of just the mailing stuff going bad. The power supply came in the exact same condition. Power supplies are really heavy, and I had the power supply box with a rubber band wrapped around it, and the shipping label stuck to the bottom. So that wasn't good either. But what I did is, so I got the CPU. The CPU is fine. I installed the motherboard. I put the CPU on it. I put my NVMe drive in it. I hooked up all the case stuff that was supposed to go, which can be a pain if you don't know your motherboard or the case doesn't describe it very well. But here's the major problem that I ran into. So I've got a tough 240 RGB liquid cooler. Okay, and look at all of these danglers. How do you hide everything and make it look pretty? So hard with this. But anyway, the cooler isn't bad itself. It seemed to do the job. It turned on. It was pretty. All the lights came on. I got the RGB stuff figured out. That's the only thing I wasn't certain about, was all the RGB and all that stuff. Turned out that was simple. But you've got your cold plate or your mount in your bracket here. Okay, well, for Intel, it comes pre-installed, and it's a large plate. Anyway, this is the most Mickey Mouse shit I've ever seen in my life. So this little tiny inner circle here, this is your bracket for AMD, and you've got this inner fucking circle here that's just a piece of plastic. And if you take this, and there it goes. It just popped off. It just came apart. And that was supposed to be seated properly already. So you've got, I'm going to try to show this to you so you guys can get a good image of what I'm talking about. Here's the cold plate. You take this for the AMD and you slide it over here, okay? And you match it up to how you want it to sit. And then you take this plastic ring and put it down on top. You adjust it, move it around, and you got to snap it together with your fingers. Well, anyway, this keeps popping off. It keeps disassembling. And the other thing I didn't like is it's just got a hook here on one end. You hook it to part of the plastic that's on the motherboard, and then this side pushes down with a pin and you screw it down. Anyway, horrible, horrible AMD mounting solution for this air cooler. I did not like it. I did get it installed 3 different times, but it never seemed to be seated properly for all the proper cooling. Sorry, chat. I'm going to get to you in just a second. I'm just trying to go through a rundown of everything I did. So the motherboard was installed, the CPU, the NVMe, the RAM was installed. I had my power cords connected. And this board takes an 8-pin and a 4-pin to the CPU. Now, you don't have to use both. It's for overclocking, but you have to use the 8-pin. Or you can if you use just the 4, it says that you can overheat your CPU. What all-in-one is it? It is the Tough Gaming LG 240 RGB. The AMD mounting solution is garbage on that. I did not like it at all. I seated it 3 times and it just didn't ever feel like flat enough. And it also recommends to install that in the case instead of out of the case like you would normally do. So I followed the directions and it was just a mess. But, so after all that, I got everything installed. I got that all-in-one mounting bracket on, or sort of on, and it posted. Woohoo! It posted to BIOS. I went into BIOS and checked it out. I installed Windows 10 on a thumb drive. And the NVMe goes at like 3,500 Mbps read and write. So it's like super fast. Well, one of 2 things was happening after I would power on the PC. It would post, it installed Windows, but after Windows was installed, as soon as you would boot, within 3 to 5 minutes, it would reset or restart. And what I mean by that is not a blue screen of death. It wouldn't, oh no, Windows has had an issue and then give you an error and all that stuff, and you could go find the event log, and no event log. It would just reboot. Like my power supply cut all power for a second and then gave it right back to it. That's what it was acting like. I know there's a PBO function, which is a precision boost overdrive, but here's the problem. I did not like the liquid cooler. I did not like it. I didn't like the way it sat. I didn't think it was cooling it properly. It may have been, but once I hit the spot where it kept rebooting, not in a boot cycle, but it would just reboot after 3 to 5 minutes. I thought heat was building up on the CPU. But I talked to the motherboard people and they said that if the CPU shuts down over heat, it powers off the entire system. It will not reboot. It will not get power again until I hit the button. That didn't happen. So it might have been the PBO. So the major problem with it was, I guess, the all-in-one water cooling solution and the way it mounted to the CPU. I did not like that. I thought it was Mickey Mouse. So, I think I'm done with AMD, boys. I think I am... What power supply do I have? I have the EVGA 1000 GT Gold. And that's just it. When you get to a reboot situation like that, yes, it could have been the PBO, I guess. Technically, it might have, because there is a scenario in which it does cause reboots with the CPU. But I had to wait for another air cooler to come. I found an air cooler that would adequately cool the 5950X with benchmarks. But I was out of time, out of money. I was looking at a window of going over the build process to where I'd have to start keeping parts and not be able to return them. So I'm scrapping the project at this point. I'm going to send absolutely everything back, and I'm going to order again in a few weeks. And hopefully the parts come in a better condition and have been shipped better. And I'm going to do an Intel build, I think. Get a Corsair one. Awesome, man. Yeah, it was the bracket that made it hard. It wasn't the position on the board or anything. It was literally that round circle plastic cage that went on it. It was just garbage. You'd go to put it on, put any kind of pressure on it to get it into place to make it flat, and it would just pop apart. Very, 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 very aggravating. But the build wasn't a fail in the sense that I couldn't get it to post or I couldn't get it to boot or any of that stuff. NVMe, smoking fast. I mean, if it was shutting down over heat or whatever. It literally installed all of Windows 10 in less than 3.5 minutes. It's pretty impressive, actually. But yeah, so that's what I'm looking at. I think I'm going to go Intel next time. I'm going to go with a damn air cooler. I know the actual all-in-one system isn't hard to figure out. The RGB cables isn't hard to figure out. If it would have had a better mounting bracket, I think I wouldn't have had as much trouble with it. Yeah, all those little pins, man, that was, it wasn't hard to seat it and then to get it into position or anything. But when you're looking at $2,500 worth of parts all over your table and then things don't start to go correctly, I don't know, man. It really gets your ass puckering, if you know what I'm saying. Corsair uses a metal bracket, so does the NZXT, I believe. Yeah, this was a combination of metal and plastic, and it would slide together. Sorry all this happened, but good choice sending it all back before that time period passes, and then you're stuck with it. Absolutely dismal. See, this was my thinking, man. Like I said, man, if I was Linus Tech Tips and I had an extra power supply, I had an extra stick of RAM, I had an extra CPU, and I had an extra motherboard and a bench to just slap stuff on it and test it, I think I could have kept this build and been, happy with it and feel secure with its processor, its stability. Right now, I am not happy with the stability of this thing. I mean, as soon as I turned it on and started to install Windows, I immediately started to have problems. But if the CPU cooler wasn't seated properly and actually cooling absolutely all the cores, because there's 16 cores, 32 threads, I took a picture of the hardware monitor, and it looked like, I didn't know how to read it because there was so many cores and so many threads and so many things that it was showing. But the board was at 27C, and the main CPU is at 42C at idle, I think, or something. But some of the cores were at 90C. There was like one core at 90C, another core at 8, or thread, whatever it was showing. It was quite dramatic. So I'm unsure what was actually causing this reboot. But what I was going to have to do was wait for another cooler in the mail to diagnose the reboot. And at that point, I'm basically at the same point I am with my old computer, which is trying to find the ghost in the machine that makes this thing randomly shut off sometimes. So yeah, so I'm right back to square one. I'm going to send everything back. I'm going to order Intel next time. No Asus. I'm not dealing with Asus boards. I'm going to go with MSI probably. I'm going to go Intel, and I'm going to go with a giant air cooler that I'm used to. WTT, Williams Tech Tips. Just the tip. Of course, you checked your RAM compatibility. Yes, I checked RAM compatibility with the board. It posted, it booted, it started to run Windows. It was just that reboot thing. And it could have been a bad stick of RAM too, like I said. I don't have a shelf to just start pulling stuff, and I don't have time to wait for it to keep coming around. And yes, Real Certified Doctor, AMD chips do run hot. 78C would not have bothered me under load. But 91C at idle? No, something was wrong there. Something was definitely wrong. What was wrong, I don't know. That PBO cranks up all the voltage because it's like a auto overclock or whatever, and it's constantly adjusting things, and I don't like that either. If I wanted to overclock, shit, I'd have been into overclocking years ago. All your computer, mainly, all the heavy lifting is done from the GPU, unless something is CPU intensive. But that's where I'm at, guys. I was gonna stream a game today and try to play and stuff, but I think I'm gonna just leave it here, man. I'm gonna run through and answer some questions and go through the chat. Thank all you guys for hanging out with me. It just sucks, man. When you're deep in it and you're building, it can feel like you don't know what you're doing. Like, even though I knew where the power reset, where all the stuff went on the case, everything went on the motherboard. All I was a little confused with was the RGB, all the RGB lighting and the harnesses and stuff. But that was simple. But when you're in it and something isn't working, you start to second guess all the stuff that you're doing, and it's just interesting. All right, let me come back up here to the top here. Real certified doctor and vet. Hey vet, what's happening, man? Thanks for stopping through. David Wilson. Let's see, Bruce. Thank you for those wonderful tunes, sir, for the beginning of my stream. I appreciate that, man, more than you know. Sierra Rose. Hope you're not working too hard this Monday. Climax. I think the build's a failure, man. But hey, I got it to post, I got it to boot, and I installed Windows. So, I mean, you know, I guess that's not saying too much. Oh, man. Jeff Janak, thank you for hanging out, man. I appreciate you. If you ever have any questions when you get all the new stuff, feel free to DM me on Twitter. I know my stuff. I figured you'd have a real certified opinion doctor. That's why I figured I'd jump on here for this kind of discourse. Certified tech tips. Absolutely. But yeah, man. So after I discussed with Asus about the reboot, they said, yeah, it could be the CPU, could be the motherboard, could be the power supply, could be the RAM. And they said, hook up that liquid cooler again so we can, you know, start to diagnose. And I was just like, oh my God, forget that liquid cooling, man. Forget it. This mounting attachment, it's not the all-in-one cooler. I'm sure that thing is fantastic. And it also had a cool RGB thing in the symbol, or like in the center, that I could have changed the symbol to anything I wanted, like the Retro Rewind logo. I'd have to use their software for all that, but it all seemed really, really, really cool, man. But let me go over just a few things right before I jump off. AMD plate bracking for the tough all-in-one LC or LC240 RGB is not good. Don't do that. And if you receive a motherboard in the mail, just like this in the motherboard box with the shipping label on the back, you might want to contact them ahead of time because they probably borked your board. Just saying. But that's about it, man. So I spent 4 or 5 hours on Saturday figuring out that something was wrong, and then I spent another 3 hours on Sunday going over everything, making sure I didn't do anything stupid, and then resetting up that damn air cooler or water cooler, and going through all the stuff. I did not shut the PBO off on the board because I don't have the air cooler hooked up. I couldn't do that to see if that immediately stopped the reboots. It very well could have. I could have had a stable system after turning that off, and off to the races I could have went. But having that errant problem, I would rather just do what I know, which is Intel, and, you know, go that route. So that's basically what I'm looking at. Hey, I have that same board. Yeah, the B550F Gaming. It looked really neat, man. Matter of fact, Amazon is amazing, and I get to keep this board. I already set up the returns for everything. I got to get the shipping labels, put it in the box, and they were like, we're going to just refund you for the damn motherboard. We're not even going to ask for it back. I'm holding it for a month just to make sure they don't ask for it back, but, you know, it was shipped in the motherboard box. What do you do, man? I mean, I know that the boxes are built to keep things good, but that motherboard box, I don't know. I don't trust that going all the way. Let's see. Lee, how are you doing, sir? I hope you're feeling better, man. I just crawled out of my COVID deathbed, basically. Not really. I got a cold, and then it turned into the flu, and, you know, I don't know. I hate being sick. I'm a big baby. Oh, man. But all right, guys, that's just an update on everything that's going on. Thank every one of you for hanging out and listening to me ramble and talk about PC parts and all that good stuff. But sadly, I don't have a PC to show you, man, with all the flashy lights and all that stuff. The 3060 worked, no problem. Like I said, I didn't have any problem except for the errant reboots, and that could have been a thermal issue or an actual fault in the board or the chip or whatever. So my house alarms are going off. Alexa, turn that shit off. Oh, man. But all right, guys. Yeah, that's just the way it is. I'm going to build an Intel machine. I didn't bend any pins, damn it. And it was set up correctly. But sadly, the way everything was shipped, I just don't trust this stuff, man. Definitely, if you ship a motherboard, stick it in the motherboard box and then stick that box in another box with some packing. That would be wonderful. That would be absolutely fantastic. Oh, man. But hey, everybody, thank you so much for popping through. You guys make this shit so fun. And I will be back Wednesday, maybe with a good stream. I don't know. We'll see if my old computer doesn't crash. But so far, so good, everybody. Please take care of each other. Be careful. There's a pandemic. And try to be good to each other, man. Life's short. Later, guys.
Stadia Pro Gaming. It's in the cloud.